For all of your insurance needs, look no further than our primary sponsor, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. The ATX OG has been insuring Austin for over 3 decades. And get this, Jim Saxton is a Longhorn legacy. He is the son of the late, great James Saxton, who was a Heisman finalist. Be sure to give him a call, or better yet, visit his website, saxtoninsurance.com, and tell him that the stories inside the Man Cave Boys recommended you.
Wake your ass up
or take a damn nap.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have.
It's time.
Sean, you were twerking. That's going to happen.
Murph, don't be a dick all your life.
It's one of the more fun podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're not talking about sports in the Man Cave, I better not say you not a man.
That's it.
John Allgood, have you ever had a dramatic introduction like that, such as that, with that hard-hitting bass?
It's funny that where you're based out of and one of your sponsors being a legacy of the Longhorns, and then you got a picture of me at an OU football game. I support whoever is supporting you. So if you're a Longhorn or a Sooner, you should support whoever's sponsoring the Man Cave.
And support your fellow SEC future brethren, so to speak.
For sure.
Oh, my God. This is going to be a great episode, not only because it's a reunion for John and I, but also to give a quick background. But before we do that, I got to give a shout out to our Honest AC and Plumbing. As John knows, he's a Round Rock native, or he lived in Round Rock and for quite some time. He knows how hot it can be. It's hot in Oklahoma. It's hot in Austin. We're about to set a potential record of triple-digit heat. And these guys at Honest AC and Plumbing, they're old school. They believe in the handshake agreement. They're based in Hutto, Texas, and they serve the northern half of the Austin.
The Hippos.
Suburbs.
The Hippos.
Yes. The Hippos. That's right. I don't know of any other Hippos in the country as a mascot. And that's something.
By the way, you can get some great barbecue in Hutto as well.
What place are you talking about?
Oh, I don't know. This is back in 1985. I couldn't remember.
Those families are still there, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Honest AC and Plumbing, locally owned, veteran owned. They do things right as far as trustworthy business. So, give them a call. So, John Allgood, how we met, I was working in Oklahoma City in the media, and he was basically the guy who ran what is now the Oklahoma City Dodgers, the AAA organization for the Rangers when I was there. Yep. Deeply rooted to OKC and OU in the sports world, created a lot of opportunities. And as far as professional sports in the Oklahoma City metro area, but now he's up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, working for Temple University, and is becoming a significant figure as far as the academic world there, teaching young minds sports management, sports marketing. And I want to pull you up right here, your title.
Yeah, it's long.
There's just not enough space. And this is you. Take it away as far as what I'm missing there, because space is limited here.
So I'm a professor in what we call the on-the-ground master's program. So that'd be your traditional master's program in sports business. And I'm also a professor in the undergraduate program, but I teach upper class, so juniors and seniors. Then I'm also the academic director of the executive master's program, which is a 100% online program that teaches executives how to further their career by teaching current issues, what's happening in the world today. And so I have dual roles, but because of my dual roles, I end up getting an opportunity to meet a lot of really cool and smart people in the sports world. beyond what I did in Oklahoma City. But now my network goes into ESPN, the National Hockey League. I mean, our front offices, Major League Baseball, college coaches, broadcasters like yourself. So it's international. We go into Canada and Mexico, and we actually have the vice president of Soccer Federation for Honduras in our program.
Interesting.
Yes, but I've been here for 5 years. Believe it or not, I moved here from Oklahoma City 5 years ago last week, and love every minute of it. And just a side note, my daughter, who graduated from Putnam North High School in Oklahoma City, is a junior soccer player for your Temple Owls.
The Temple, are they the Lady Owls? Is that what they call them?
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Lady Owls. Yeah, John's a good follow on LinkedIn because you can see each contribution or thing that he produces from a written document, article. And I want to pull up this one. This is kind of going to be the subject of this first segment here. If you visit thejournalrecord.com and his LinkedIn, of course, because we've had a constant evolution of college sports, namely college football, because that's the money generator, if you will, for revenue. Yep. The Big Ten is changing. The SEC really changed when Texas A&M and Missouri left the Big 12 and created that, what we call a super conference. Now Texas and Oklahoma, in a year now, we're guessing 2025 the latest. But I like this quote, and you're talking about a lot of people, and you see it on social media. A lot of people are not liking this because it ruins the regional, the geographic rivalries, particularly the Pac-12 with USC and UCLA with the pending move to the Big Ten. Your quote, "It's not bad, it's different." So in this article that people can read and your overall point of view, as we're going to continue to unbundle this, what is your educated point of view on this to really relay to the people who are noticing and we're all witnessing significant change that we all knew was coming. We just didn't know what it would look like.
Yeah, Sean, so just to give everyone your vast audience some background. So I write a lot about sports business, and I've been been interviewed by ESPN and Sports Illustrated and the Sports Business Journal and the Philadelphia Inquirer. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But so this is part of my job is what I do is I think a lot about sports business and what the trends are going to be. So I write consistently for the Journal Record, which is a business website. And for me, I've been following this story for a long time. And I actually had taught my classes 3 years ago that I felt like, at that time, I felt like the Power Five was going to break away from the NCAA because, for various reasons. One is the revenue is getting big. The NCAA is impotent when it comes to managing college football. I'm just being honest about it. And we're seeing that come out now, right? And just felt like the Power Five was growing so much in revenue and power that it was going to happen. If you recall, last year when Oklahoma and Texas chose to go to the SEC, there was a lot of people that were like, why would they do that? Why would they leave the Big 12? Well, there's one reason why you do it. It's because your payout is going to go from $35 million probably to $100 million annually to each school. And how, again, I'm going to be a little professor here. How that works is, so as a conference, you negotiate what I call consumption rights. Some people call them broadcast rights, but I call them consumption rights. And what that means is, how are your fans going to consume your sport, whether it's on terrestrial TV or broadcast TV, or is it going to be streamed on a different platform? And now we're finding out that Amazon and Apple are, getting really involved in that. So Texas and Oklahoma left because of the stability of the SEC and the fact that they're going to improve their distribution from the SEC's consumption rights, 100%. So of course they're going to do it, right? And it threw everyone in a tizzy. When I'm talking about a lot of the sports media people that cover it, this is not what college athletics is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about pageant and tradition and geography. Well, we learned last week it's not about that, Sean. Who would ever thought the USC and UCLA would end up going to the Big Ten based on geography? No. Why are they going? Because the Pac-12 has the worst payout of any Power 5 conference, and it doesn't look like it's going to improve. So, of course, USC and UCLA is going to go to a better place because of the consumption rights, and academically they fit in as well. So what I've been reading over the last week are, different reporters and columnists and fans writing about, this is awful. This is not what college football is supposed to be. Well, it's not bad. It's just different. It's not going to be your father or grandfather's college football world anymore.
That's the truth.
Sean, and we're not done. I mean, we're seeing reports just in the last 24 hours that the Big 12 now is talking to the Pac-12, or not talking to the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 teams, the Arizonas, about coming to the Big 12. And Sean, last year at this time, when OU and Texas left, the Pac-12 could have gone and raided the Big 12. And now it's turned completely over. So it's just the reality of it, and it's really, truly based on what consumption rights are going to look like in the future. And the Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12, their rights are coming up in the next 2 to 3 years, where the ACC unfortunately blundered, and they signed their consumption rights all the way through 2036. So they are in a world of hurt right now when a realignment happens.
That's a tough position to be in, because I thought the ACC was doing a fine job of looking ahead, and they had great administrative leadership. And you're seeing now, because I think Notre Dame was partnering with them. Now you see Notre Dame, which is another one of those big names that had that exclusive NBC contract for so long,
Right.
which was smart on their parts,
Right.
because they're a global, easily recognized. And so now to your point, that Notre Dame is now in talks of rumored to be tied to the USC. And there's one guy that you and I both respect that really, I saw an Instagram post, Tim Brando with CBS Sports. Yeah. I follow him quite a bit on his social media platforms when he's not playing golf. Right. He had this statement that on Instagram that he's talking about, he's saying the same things that you are, that, hey, this is different. This is not our grandfather's college football landscape. And this is what he had to say about Notre Dame's possible move into the SEC or maybe the Big Ten.
We're all waiting for Jack Swarbrick to make his decision. And no matter what he decides to do, Notre Dame is going to be in a good spot. And we see more movement beyond that. And we're going to see it from whether it's the ACC teams moving out or Pac-12 moving out into the Big 12. College football is going to be fine. I'm on your side too. Trust me.
So he's with us. We like college football before any of this ever came to fruition. But let's face it, you have to, just like if you and I owned our own businesses, we've got to be thinking 3 to 5 to 10 years down the road. And to your point, consumption. So playing off what he says, what do you think is the next move if you were to not guess, but what would be the right partnership for a program like Notre Dame?
That's a really interesting question, because Notre Dame really does still have a lot of power because they are independent. And as you said, they're a global brand. But in the future, they're going to have to probably be part of a conference, even if it's just an agreement on just like – so there are other sports besides football are tied in with the ACC. I could see some type of relationship with the Big Ten, but it has to be all in. Like it can't just be it just can't be Notre Dame's with football, the Big Ten, and the Olympic sports stay with the ACC. So I think it's going to be all in. The other thing that I think is going to happen is, I told this to a friend of mine the other day, and he didn't believe me. I think the Pac-12 is done. I think as it's known today, I think there'll be a watered-down Pac-12, very much. I think the linchpin there is, what does Oregon and Washington do right now as we speak on July 7th, is what do they do? If they decide to bolt, the Pac-12 is done. You're right. I know the Pac-12 commissioner is trying to move up the consumption agreement negotiations, like right now, where they're supposed to wait till next year. And the reason why he's doing that is he's trying to get a better deal, but then also to be able to lock down what we call the grant rights so he can keep the current teams in the Pac-12. The problem, Sean, is that ESPN and Fox and CBS and NBC, they're smart. They know that the Pac-12 doesn't have any leverage right now. So why would they pay more?
Right.
Why would they pay more? They're not going to, because they don't have, the Pac-12 doesn't have any leverage. So I think the Pac-12, if I had to make a prediction, I think the Pac-12 is done is what we know. I think you'll see the Arizona schools go to the Big 12. Colorado will probably go back to the Big 12. Yeah. Utah will probably go to the Big 12. It's a natural rivalry with BYU again. And then after that is, okay, does Stanford go to the Big 10? Because they're probably more of a fit in the Big 10 from an academic standpoint, right? And what happens to Washington State? Don't know. Mountain West, maybe, I don't know, right? But I think the Pac-12 is done. The Big 10, probably Stanford, if I had to guess. And then the real question happens, the Big 12 gets better, right? Because they get some of those Pac-12 teams, and they'll be able to negotiate a better deal. So the question is, what happens to the ACC teams? And then it goes to their grant rights are locked up till 2036. So if you're the SEC and the revenue gets to a point that is so large, are they willing to pay or help pay a Florida State and a Clemson and a North Carolina to get out of the ACC to join the SEC, which I think it could be a reality. And we're talking within the next 3-4 years happening.
So, one thing that I think people talk about, well, now kickoff times. Listen, kickoff times are not even of concern when you're talking about business, with Pacific Coast time. I hate to see, and I faced that reality because I was thinking about the Pac-12 dissolving as far as relevance. When you look at BYU, what their move, a natural partner would be Utah and that Salt Lake City TV market, which is a decent sized market.
Yep.
But Salt Lake City, is BYU a bigger draw for the Salt Lake City market, or is Utah? That's what my question.
They're probably equal. My guess is they're probably equal. I had a really good friend of mine that was the really strong minor league baseball executive that was the assistant GM in Salt Lake, and I visited him a few times because our team in Oklahoma City played there in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on Salt Lake, but I can tell you both universities are pretty well represented in Salt Lake. I would assume it's pretty close to 50-50, but you're probably going to have a bigger following of BYU because of their culture around the country as opposed to the Utes, if that makes sense. No, it does. That does. And so one point I want to make real quick, Sean, that's a misnomer that I've seen in the media a lot, and I'm not banging the media people. No, I'm just. So when you start talking about, okay, well, why doesn't the Big 12 go after SMU? Because they're in Dallas. Well, guess what, Sean? They don't own the Dallas market. No. It's Oklahoma and Texas A&M, and you could argue Oklahoma State, right? The same thing. Why don't they go after UCF? Well, UCF is in the Big 12 now, but UCF does not own the Orlando market. It's Miami and Florida State and Florida, right? So it's not because Houston does not own the Houston market. University of Houston does not. It's Texas A&M, right? In Texas. So that's one thing our audience needs to realize. Just because you reside in the city, your campus is in the city, does not mean you own that city from a consumption standpoint. What do you see? Because we're talking about the evolution of the super conferences. I see a 4-conference model. That's where we're headed. What happens now to the college football playoff and even deeper to the FCS level? Does this strengthen FCS from the football championship subdivisions, programs like Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, Texas State, Texas State, being a group of 5 program now. Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right. They made a run almost to the College World Series in baseball. And it's so. How does this affect, in your opinion? Because we're all talking about the business of college athletics here. The CFP, do you see it finally expanding when all of these conferences finalize their business deals? And does any shape or form, does it help the FCS level, in your opinion, who's had an established 20-team playoff for their postseason? So I'll answer your second question first. It's gonna diminish FCS even further. Because what is going to happen is the playoff will expand. If it does not expand, you may end up seeing a playoff between the SEC and only Big Ten teams. Oof. They form their own playoff, especially because you're going to see in the next 18 months, they're going to announce we're going to govern ourselves, meaning at least the Big Ten, the SEC. If the Big 12 can get those Pac-12 teams and the ACC can figure out if they can hold on to the Florida States and the Clemsons and the North Carolinas of the world, then we're going to look at, I think it's going to be more like the NFL model from a scheduling standpoint and a playoff. I know people don't like it, but that's where we're headed. It's going to be NFL Division 2 is what it's going to be. And it's going to be, I don't know how big the playoffs will be, but you're going to have more than 12 teams. The SEC and the Big Ten, if the Big 12 and the ACC don't get their act together, you may see just a playoff between what? Top 6 teams, top 4 teams, top 8 teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, SEC and the Big Ten. So, I am an employee and passionate about Temple University. If I had a second favorite university besides the University of Oklahoma, it would be Temple University. And this is not good for Temple football.
Sam Houston, who partnered with Stephen F. Austin, and we're talking about FCS right here to that point, how that's going to diminish that level of football. They went, and along with Abilene Christian and I think Lamar University, went to the WAC. Well, then after this 1 year, the administration at Sam Houston said, you know what? We're going up to FBS.
Okay.
Now, completely off the record, I'm not going to say names, and not that it's pretty obvious that Stephen F. Austin has, because I'm an alum of Stephen F., they're going to explore possibly a 3 to 5 year plan, which may accelerate now to go up to FBS because of this situation, which I never anticipated this to happen so quickly, where it's like daily changes.
It is.
I mean, for you, when you see the change this quickly, these aren't just decisions made overnight. These parties have been in discussion for quite some time, right?
How Joe Castiglione and Del Conte kept that secret of them going to the SEC for as long as they did is amazing to me, because there were so many people that knew about it within both of their administrations, and how it didn't get leaked was stunning to me. I mean, just stunning, right? And the same thing with SC and UCLA. I mean, my daughter flew in from Oklahoma City to move back to Philly for the upcoming academic year and training. And I was in the car and I get a text from one of my friends that says, or a group of my friends on a group text said, hey, I'm hearing UCLA and USC. There's reports out there that they're going to the Big Ten. And at first I was like, no. No. And then the more I thought about it, as I was driving to the airport to pick her up, I thought, well, well, yeah, if OU and Texas could do it and keep it that quiet, why couldn't UCLA and USC?
Right.
And then they made the announcement that night. The Big Ten voted on it that night, and it was in. So how you keep that secret, I have no clue how they did it. But to answer your question, Sean, it doesn't happen. They didn't wake up on Monday and say, oh, guess what? We're going to announce Tuesday that, we're going to the Big 12, or we're going, to the Big 10. No, that's been a long time going. And you notice the way procedure works is that technically the Big 10 could not recruit UCLA and USC. The SEC could not recruit Texas and Oklahoma. The two schools on both Pac-12 and the Big 12, they had to reach out to the conference and initiate the interest. And then what happens is, right, that interest by the commissioner has to be, given to the member schools. Usually it's the presidents. And, I'm sure the ADs got involved too. And by the way, the football coaches probably had no say in this. I think Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State even said that we have no input into this. But is that they had to talk about it, and they're talking about it with their own staff. So how it got out is amazing, or how it didn't get out is amazing to me. And but it was so they had to give their interest that they wanted to go to the Big Ten. I'm talking about SC and UCLA. The presidents, essentially, or the chancellors of the universities, had to agree to let them come on. And then they vote on it. It's done. And it's over. It's over. It's done. That's it. But there's a lot of work that led up to that. And it's just the way it's going to be. And that's why you're not hearing anything out of Notre Dame right now, because I'm sure they're waiting to see where the chips fall.
And they're going to make a best decision. They have options.
Right.
Unlike, it's very rare to have any program or either you or myself have options for business. And that's what they're doing, trying to figure out long-term, because no one wants to go through this again and again.
No. And I here's the interesting thing, Sean, what's going to happen down the road is when the Pac-12 and the Big 12, if the Pac-12 is still alive, and the Big 12 and the Big 10 negotiate their next consumption agreement, how long will those agreements be? Right. And that's not just up to the conferences. That's also up to the ESPNs and the Apples and the Amazons and the CBSs of the world, because those platforms want to tie them in for long term. Whereas if I'm a commissioner or a president of a university, I'm thinking, well, what technology is going to change 5 years from now where we're consuming it in a completely different way? And so do you lock in? Do you make the mistake that the ACC did, and you lock in for over a decade and a half with one platform when it could change, right? So interesting story real quick. So the Big Ten has been talking to these platforms about their next consumption agreement. Apple walked away from the table. Once SC and UCLA were confirmed going to the Big Ten, Apple's now back at the table negotiating again. And by the way, Apple and Amazon can offer a crap load of money, non-traditional levels.
Well, streaming has become a much greater platform than I ever would have imagined. Take, for example, this recent NCAA college baseball,
right?
Regionals, super regionals, all the ESPN platforms, all from your phone.
It was great.
And I think it helped. Well, you and I know the value of college baseball, but not everyone's on board with it. But that only helped because people were working, could watch the regional play right here.
Yeah.
Or, you got to watch it the right way in landscape form. But
that's right.
It's amazing. And another value that is helping not only college baseball, but this is a significant piece, the name, image, and likeness.
Yep.
And you've written about this.
Yep.
And it's a huge gray area right now. So it is a wild, wild west. And if you're a part of a program and you have connections to your boosters, why not? And I guess my question to you, what is it that you would tell these families of recruits and the general population, meaning the fans, what name, image, and likeness is and what it is not? Okay.
So to go back in my history, so I wrote a column for the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is like one of the top 5 newspapers in the country. And we call them newspapers, news websites now.
What is that?
Yeah, right. What is that on my porch? Someone littered. No, it's a newspaper. Oh, okay. So when California passed the state law permitting essentially NIL to be affected, I wrote an op-ed for the Philadelphia Inquirer. It was quite long. I was very proud of it. And I did not read the comments because my friend said, you do not want to read the comments from people about your opinion, which I got just shredded, because the point of my column 3 years ago was we don't know what the unintended consequences are going to be. Right. And we're having state legislators passing this with the right intentions, but you can't just pass it with not knowing what the unintended consequences are going to be. And I actually ended up debating a state senator from Pennsylvania and a high school football coach from Camden, New Jersey, which is right across the bridge from here, on network radio. And I made the same arguments and they didn't take anything that I said. Well, not that I was right, Sean, but I was right. And what we found out, there's a lot of unintended consequences that happened, and it did turn into Wild West. And the haves are still the haves and the have-nots are not. And so you have a quarterback that allegedly is getting $9 million to play quarterback for the University of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have Caleb Williams going to SC, already has 3 deals, you know, in the millions. So what NIL is that college athletes can get paid for their name,
Mm-hmm.
their image, or their likeness. And a lot of it is appearances, endorsements, signing autographs, you know, those type of things. And the Alabamas and let's in your neck of the woods, there's a reason why that university in College Station has the #1 recruiting class in the country last year. And that's because they paid the most money. Jimbo Fisher can say he doesn't. Or I can tell you that Nick Saban says they did. So it's, you know, but it's legal right now.
It
right?
is.
University of Miami has $1 billion booster that's giving every football player money. So it's legal right now, but I'm trying to think, can it, a KU, a Kansas, other than basketball, do you think the football players for the Jayhawks are getting big NIL money? No, right?
Not a chance.
And so the haves, the programs that are in the top 20 consistently have the boosters that are supporting them, and they can take that money. Now, so I think we got that covered, right? I think everyone understands what NIL is, right? So the university cannot give money to the players.
Correct.
Right? And they can't use NIL as inducements for recruiting, right? So the NCAA came out a month and a half ago, 45 days ago, maybe 60 days ago. And let me back up, Sean. So there's something called a collective, and I wrote about this.
Mm-hmm.
So a collective would be your neck of the woods, University of Texas. So if I'm a booster and I'm giving money to the athletic department, let's say I get with 10 of my buddies that are also big boosters, and we decide we're going to form either a profit or a nonprofit collective. So imagine it's a company. We then go to our buddies and say, give us $50,000 each. We'll get to $20 million, how many people it takes to get to $20 million. And then what we'll do is once a player commits to playing at the University of Texas football, then we can give money out of that collective to them to do something for a service, to earn that, whether it's name, image, likeness, whatever. What has happened, though, is that those collectives, and they talked about Miami specifically and Tennessee, University of Tennessee, those collectives were going straight to the recruits saying, if you go to the University of Tennessee, we're going to give you X amount of money. Mm-hmm. And the NCAA said, no, you can't do that because you're a booster and boosters cannot recruit, even though they've been doing it for years. So now you're starting to see the curtains get pulled aside a little bit more, and you're starting to see the unintended consequences that happen because of the NIL passing. The NCAA now has come in and said, collectives, you're a booster, so you can't recruit. So I wrote about this too. So now there's nonprofit collectives.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is the same thing. They're forming this nonprofit, getting the money in. And what they did at the University of Oklahoma, and Kelly Masters is a good friend of mine. She's an NFL agent. Mm-hmm. And she's also a nonprofit attorney. And she worked with the University of Oklahoma to create their nonprofit. And so the ways there works for athletics is Sean Clinch gives the nonprofit collective money. You get a tax write-off because it's a donation to a nonprofit. Then we will pay an Oklahoma football player X amount of money to go work for a nonprofit that's been approved by the university. So just take like Special Olympics.
Right.
So if player X has a passion for Special Olympics, he can get money to go work a Special Olympics event, sign autographs to be raffled off for Special Olympics through this nonprofit collective. And so that seems like the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. But as we both know, some nonprofits are truly not nonprofits, right? And who's actually benefiting from it? So all of this, to answer your question, is a long answer. All of this will get worked out. It will not be what it is today. The NIL within 2 years will not be what it is today because of what? The unintended consequences that happen from it.
Correct. But why not take advantage of it currently in its current state or form?
Sure.
I know I've been educated pretty deeply on it here locally. So one of my original co-hosts when we started this podcast, Mike Murphy, he CEO runs Last Stand Hat Company.
Okay.
He did it a very unique and creative way, which I think is very productive. It's not just UT, it's all UT men's and women's athletes have the opportunity, as well as Texas State and other universities that he has licensing agreements with. Essentially, what he offers is an opportunity to create a marketable brand for that individual, male or female student athlete, and create apparel, hats, shirts, and they are an ambassador in a way that they tweet it, put it on social media, make appearances, show pictures of that individual in this gear, and they get a percentage of the sales.
Nice.
Which is in a brand, a marketable brand. It could even be an NFT, so to speak.
Right.
The Occupy Left Field Foundation here in Austin for the University of Texas baseball program, they partnered with, I believe, 4 local nonprofits where these Texas baseball players make appearances for these nonprofit organizations and either make appearances, but are also compensated for their work on social media and in person, as you mentioned. So there's several creative ways to make this happen.
And I believe in NIL. It just has to be legislated. It's just right. And then here's the other thing that's going to be a challenge. So I have quite a few of my former graduate students and just colleagues that work in the development offices for athletic departments. And for you don't know, development is where they raise money to go to help pay scholarships for capital expenditures to improve facilities, so and pay a coach. I mean, all those things. And what we're seeing though is some of the nefarious collectives are convincing their fellow boosters to give the money to the collective so they can wrestle power away from the athletic department. So then they can try to dictate to the athletic director. So instead of me and my 9 buddies giving money to the athletic department at X university, what I'm going to do is we're going to give it to the collective. And then I'm going to call the athletic director and say, I got 25 million sitting here. I'm not going to give it to you unless you fire, the hockey coach or you do something like that. So they're trying to wrestle. Some of those collectives are trying to wrestle power away from the athletic departments.
All right. John Allgood, I think we all can agree, taking care of ourselves, being a presentable way as men, we have this thing called facial hair. We have this thing called hair all over our bodies.
All over our bodies.
AKA pubes.
Yes.
Yes.
AKA the jungle. AKA the jungle.
And no one wants to talk about it.
We got to talk about it, though. Sean, we got to talk about it.
It's awareness.
It's about life.
Life.
It's as my friend from college say, it's very natural and beautiful.
Yes.
Yes.
Because our significant others in our lives, as I like to say, I say this a lot, they would prefer, if you were to ask our significant others, they would prefer us not resemble the German Black Forest below the belt.
They would prefer us to look like the outfield in Wrigley Field.
Oh, fine cut trim.
Yes. Yep.
No stray blade.
None
whatsoever. Kind of like the field behind you in Oklahoma City.
Bricktown Ballpark. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. And Dell Diamond, man, they do a great job. I've been lucky and fortunate to have seen 2 of the best minor league baseball stadiums in America.
Monty McCoy, longtime groundskeeper, Bricktown Ballpark. Let's go.
Monty McCoy is a fine American, in my opinion.
Yes, he is.
Yes. So, Manscaped.com, as we've all had to do since 2020, there was it's still going on mildly a pandemic. We had to evolve. Manscaped.com has done a fantastic job of evolving and creating and generating interest in marketing. Well, their latest, what they've evolved to is this 3-part gift package called the Ultra Smooth package. And if you look close, that's what we call a sack, a cod sack.
All right.
As their logo. This is shaving care for down there. And what I like about this one, all of their products and their gift packages are phenomenal.
They are.
And are you a user of manscaped.com?
I will be tonight.
You should be.
Yeah.
So you see the 4-step process. You got to get in the shower or your tub first. Then you scrub the circulars, which are your balls. Then you lube it up, and then it's showtime. And so this one's a crop exfoliator. You know, you got to exfoliate anywhere where you have an epidermis, right?
Yeah, of course.
It may be wrinkled, but still take care of it.
Of course.
Step 2, the crop gel. It's the clear growing shaving gel. And this is what was so impressive to me. You don't always need length. Length's not always good. This is the little razor. You know, length is not always essential. No.
My goodness, we're going to some places. Let's go. Circular and length in one package.
Circular and length. And this is a little, there we go. The Ultra Smooth package. I would highly encourage you, the Temple Owls, and everyone we're talking about to go
John,
on.
how can I get that kit?
Manscaped.com.
Okay.
And then when you check out the Ultra Smooth package in your cart, this promo code right there, ManCave20, all one word, 20% off.
I'm as soon as we get done with this, I'm ordering 3 of them.
Gift. They're great gifts.
They are great gifts.
Your Man Cave story, which is sponsored by our guy, Jim Saxton. It's Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. Is Jason Black, would he be involved in a Man Cave story that you may have, that you experienced, that you love to tell to this day?
Well, there's many, actually. He was responsible for bringing in the actor who played Chewbacca to the ballpark to sign autographs, which also turned into Star Wars / Back to the Future night. The same club in Oklahoma City. You couldn't just get Star Trek or Star Wars. You couldn't just get Back to the Future. They were one club. So we had a DeLorean and stormtroopers walking around the same night. That's one. Of course, my favorite story is it was when LeBron James decided he was going to be free agent for the first time. So Jason, at that time I was the executive director of the club, which is also known as the general manager. It's a semantics. And Jason was director of our ticket sales, but he was also our marketing director. And over time, he wore me down. He'd come in my office with these great ideas. And so he came to me and he said, LeBron James just announced he's going to be a free agent. You know, this AAA baseball team that we operate, the Redhawks, we want to come out and let's offer him a contract, you know. And so Jason came up. Now, this is all Jason Black's idea. So he came up with like a list of 10 things. I don't know if you have that graphic, but 10 things that we were going to offer LeBron James. One of them was he could throw out the first pitch every night. He'd have a suite for every game. I think we hooked him up with a trailer in like a small town outside of Oklahoma City that he could live in. Hera. We could. We were going to raise the shower heads in the bathroom so he could, fit in there. So we went through all these different things, and we actually put out a press release or a news release at the time about it. You picked up on it, and of course, you came in and did a story which was hilarious. And I'll let you tell that story. But then it got picked up by there you go. There's a list. New hot dog name, La Bratwurst. 4 tickets to all-you-can-eat seats, which we had debuted around that time. So Sean came in and did the story on it, and Jason went into his role, and I went into my role. And all I kept saying, I had one line through the whole segment, and was that I just want to sell tickets. They'd go to Jason and said, we'll give him a rental property in Hera. And you'd go back to me and I'd say, all I want to do is sell tickets. Well, it got out, and then Baseball Tonight on ESPN named it one of its top 10 promotions that night.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to post that story to all the socials
You
that
should.
I can possibly do for Stories Inside the Man Cave. It was one of my more favorite stories that I have ever did in those 6 years in Oklahoma City. And I'm not just saying this because you're here, but those when involved you guys and really helped make those 6 years why I stayed there for 6 years.
Oh, that's great to hear.
It was a lot of fun. And Jason Black,
one of the funniest humans I've ever met in my life.
he is absolutely hilarious, talented.
Yep.
And on the other side of this break, I got a little surprise. We got a snippet of that story for you.
All right, well, let's do it then.
Man, it is so much fun. This is a quick break because, you got to pay tribute to the ones who helped you make this happen. And so we're going to talk about quickly about tickets, and we're going to talk about Altus, Oklahoma and Round Rock, which pertains to this guy, John Allgood. And that's coming up on the other side of this break. That's the sweet sound of frigid air to help us make it through this Texas heat. But if you experience issues with your AC and are sweating inside of your own home, you need an honest and locally owned company to make those repairs. Now, I know of a place which is not only locally owned, but veteran owned too. Honest AC and Plumbing prides themselves on their handshakes and their quality of work. If you live in North Austin or in any of these northern suburbs of the ATX, give the boys at Honest a shout. Be sure to tell Floyd, Will, David, and the staff you're a loyal Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast viewer and follower.
This is JJ Gotch, CEO of the Austin Gamblers, and segment 2 of Stories Inside the Man Cave is next.
Did some evaluation and really looked at the needs and wants of a player of the caliber such as LeBron James.
So Jason came to me earlier and said, we should go get LeBron James. And I said, we should. It would sell a lot of tickets.
And there it is. Little snippet of what we were talking about.
I'm a little bit more manscaped now than I was back then.
You had good follicles.
Well, I was trying to find myself, as my colleague said. It took me a while. It took me till 2022. Now I found myself.
I'm still searching. Oh my God, what a great
How about
moment.
JJ Gotch being on the promo there? Let's go, JJ.
That was kind of a surprise to you as well. JJ, you're connected to him through baseball, minor league baseball.
Yeah, long time.
And the guy has done a phenomenal job of establishing himself here locally and making that big leap to professional bull riding.
Yes, sir.
And that just started.
Yes, it did.
Now, Oklahoma City, they have a franchise, I think.
Yeah, so a little bit of my background too. So after I left the baseball team, I went to a company that we co-produced 2 PBR events with PBR in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, starting in 2000. Well, it started before I went over there, but from 2010 to 2016 when I left. And then we also did for 5 years, we produced a national championship rodeo. So I was around the Western lifestyle for a while, but that same company that I left has, I think they're called the Oklahoma City Freedom, the Freedom. Yeah, right. they have a team that will be competing with JJ's team as well, against JJ's team as well.
A great story. You have ties here. You know all about the Round Rock Dragons. You know all about what Round Rock truly was before it became really. It's becoming a pretty good size suburb now.
So my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved every 3 years growing up. My grandparents lived in Altus, and then my parents were raised in Altus. And so I was a 8th grader when we moved to Round Rock. I was a Chisholm Trail middle school guy, and then went to Round Rock High School. And at that time, Dell was not there yet. TI was there. IBM was there. But there were only 2 high schools in all of Round Rock, just 2. Yeah. There were 3 middle schools. And when I was taking driver's ed back in the day when they offered driver's ed in school. I could ride my bike down 620 and maybe see a car every 10 minutes. That was it. No joke. Yeah.
That's wild.
I know. So it was Round Rock and Westwood. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think there was only there was three. There was three middle schools, and then we moved before my junior year. Little history for you, Round Rock Dragons. I was there. I made the JV in football my sophomore year, and the high school, the varsity was in like a 26 game losing streak, I think, at some point. And then they ended up beating Westwood, which was like a huge upset. And I remember I started, not to play glory days, little Bruce Springsteen, but that spring game, I started the safety. I was getting ready to be the starting safety for Round Rock Dragons. And my dad came to me and said, guess what? We're moving to Altus, Oklahoma, who I've visited my whole life. So I went from a graduating class of, 1,000 to a graduating class of less than 200 in Altus. So I knew of Altus because we'd visited for holidays and stuff. But, some of my best friends in the world are from Altus that I went to school with. I just went back to my 35th high school reunion just this past weekend. So people ask me what my hometown is. I kind of say Round Rock and Altus just because those are my formative years. And I have a deep love for Round Rock. I mean, a deep love for Round Rock.
Quick draw questions.
Let's go.
And it'll be real quick subject matter, and you give a quick answer. We all heard of the big three or the big two in Philly. The best Philly cheesesteak in Philly.
I don't know because I never had one. True story. I get asked, I've lived here for 5 years, and I get asked that, especially from people from Oklahoma. And I said, I don't know. I've never had a cheesesteak in my life.
Wow.
Not in Philly. And the reason they go, why not? And I said, because just so I can give that answer.
I love it.
Just so I can give that answer.
Honest. Yeah. When I was there, 2009 or 10 or 8, I had a really good Philly cheesesteak at an Irish pub in downtown.
Okay.
And I would say that it would be hard to compare that.
Okay. By the way, downtown is called Center City in Philly.
Center City.
Yes.
Duly noted.
A little trivia.
Texas, Oklahoma, who wins an SEC title first when they enter the SEC?
I'm thinking very objectively here. That is a tough answer, not because of my loyalty to OU. I just think both schools made great hires in Sark and Venables.
I agree. Both.
So I'm not going to punt on you, but I have to go with my heart. I'll say Oklahoma, but I will say Texas will win multiple national championships. Actually, they'll win. If you can win the SEC, you're going to win the national championship. I think both schools within a decade. Well, so they'll go in 2025. I'll say by 2035, they both will have won multiple SEC championships.
Wow.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. John Allgood.
Yeah.
Pride of Altus and pride of Round Rock. Last but certainly not least, if someone were going to Oklahoma City and they were asking where to go, what non-touristy place would you recommend somebody to go to in Oklahoma City?
The Paseo District.
Good call.
Paseo District. It's not touristy. I'm a big artistic guy. I'm a writer. I'm not a painter or drawer, but I love art. Great restaurants down there. That would be one. I'll stay with the Paseo District. How about that?
It's a good call. It's a beautiful little area, older but maintained very well. Good planning was involved in that to maintain the integrity of that area, and it reminds me a little bit of Austin and San Francisco.
I would definitely Austin. It's got that vibe for sure.
TikTok is, I don't know how to describe it. It's an interesting place, but we all know when kids are involved, it's very kids say the damnedest things. We all know that.
Right.
Well, check out this mom and listen to her daughter in the background, young lady. And I think it's edited in, but it's still absolutely hilarious, no less. Here we go. TikToking in the man cave
Let's go.
For John Allgood.
Go.
Freaking toilet paper to wipe my ass. My butthole. Ow! Found the freaking toilet paper.
You're a father.
My butthole.
My butthole. Hey, just like Mike Gundy, you're a father of children.
Yes.
Father of children. Well, he said mother of children to Jenny Carlson, but father of children, did you have those moments with your children?
Oh, I'm sure I did. Both my daughters are very outgoing. I'm sure I did. I mean, it's been so long ago, Sean. I can tell you that I'm sure I did. They both had big personalities. So, yeah, and still have big personalities. So.
Hey y'all, Kevin Hutchison here with Realty Austin, and I am grateful to be a part of Stories Inside the Man Cave, a homegrown podcast just like my own business.
Hey man, tell me something good.
Tell me something good, sponsored by our guy Kevin Hutchison of Realty Austin, homegrown talent here. I say talent, but one of the finest human beings. Knows Austin real estate now, has added the San Antonio MSA to the equation, and he is
nice
all up and down I-35. It's a hard task of going out, finding your home, and actually winning a bid in this area.
Yeah.
It's unreal. But Hutch is your guy. And there's a ad on our Twitter site. His information. And give him a shout and tell him that you found out about him on Stories Inside the Man Cave. All right, my brother, we see so much divisiveness, negativity in our world, especially if you log on to social media more than once a day. Tell me something good that you see going on in this world, or maybe in your life, that you would love to pass along, that to uplift the folks who may think that, man, when is the end, or is there any end in sight to this negativity?
Well, I speak from a place of being a servant leader. So I find more and more of my colleagues that worked in the sports industry that are wanting to give back. And so they actually reach out to me a decent amount of people that I know and people that I don't know that I've been introduced to on LinkedIn, that want to serve students of all age so they can achieve their goal of working in sports. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's something good, is that when you put aside what you were making from a salary standpoint, working for a professional or a collegiate athletic department, a professional sports team or collegiate athletic department, and you want to give back to these students that are 18 to 24 years old, 25 if you go in grad school. And so one of the great benefits of being a professor at Temple is the relationships, the mentorships that I've been able to develop with students and help them achieve their dreams. And I still hear from them. I went to lunch the other day with the guy. And to me, I feel as much reward of helping those students out and see them achieve their dreams as much as I do selling out a stadium in Oklahoma City.
I have been blessed to have had a share a birthday with America. And this is just something in my way of saying thank you. Thank you for everyone who is.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I know.
Oh, my God.
So generous with Facebook messages, calls. I've been a very blessed guy to have people take time out of their day, but man, I've enjoyed celebrating being born on the 4th of July, and to discuss people and lose followers and viewers with this photo. That was my tell me something good part B, and we'll remove that so we won't lose any more followers.
Oh, please. Yeah. I'm just, it looks like you need some manscaping going on down there too.
Yeah, I saw that. I need to do a better job. Use the shorter razor. John Allgood, brother, I appreciate you. I look forward to working with you on future projects. It's going to be fun. Yeah. So now that he's a VIP alumni member now of Stories Inside the Man Cave.
Brought to you by Manscaped.
Brought to you by Manscaped. So for the John Allgood and the OG Man Cave boys, that being Big Mike, Coach Mo, and Harbaugh Harge, we are out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.